For more insight on what is happening in Gaza, we are joined by James Dorsey, Adjunct Senior Fellow from the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies at Nanyang Technological University. Thank you for making the time to speak with us, James. I want to start off with the situation in Gaza, where we're seeing many Palestinians getting killed or injured while going to get some food or supplies that they so much need. So why is this current aid distribution system with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation not working? Why has getting aid become so dangerous?
Israel's trying, in the best of cases, to do the impossible. That is, to replace an existing proven infrastructure with 400 distribution points operated by the United Nations and by international aid organizations with a newly created institution that only has four distribution points at best, which are highly militarized. So what you get is a situation in which Palestinians are forced to travel, often by foot, large distances through areas that are designated battle zones against the background of having been deprived of any humanitarian aid for more than 100 days, and now only a trickle. So as a result of that, what you're getting is a combination of criminal gangs, some of which allegedly are backed by Israel, as well as simply desperate people who will run for any convoy or truck that they see on a road entering Gaza, desperate for simply a bag of flour.
There's been a lot of criticism of the GHF model. The organization and Israel insist, as you said, that it is preventing Hamas from stealing and profiting from the aid. But what evidence do we have? How do we know what's really happening on the ground?
We have to rely, obviously, on the reporting that journalists from Gaza do. These are Gazan or Palestinian journalists. They're local because the Israelis do not allow any foreign press into Gaza. And if and when they do, these are dog and pony shows guided by the Israeli military and, of course, individual witnesses of the situation. Basically, the Israelis this is not about ensuring humanitarian aid. This is about politics. In the best of cases, Israel wants to create a situation in which the population would revolt against Hamas, not something that has happened in the last 22 months, despite incidental demonstrations and protests. In the worst of cases, it is creating a situation in which Gazans would have no choice but to relocate or resettle outside of the Strip.
You mentioned that this is about politics. So how significant then is this joint denunciation by these 28 countries? Can it make any difference to the situation?
I think what we're seeing is mounting concern international, belated, but nonetheless mounting concern in the international community. 5 of the signatories to that statement are G20 members or G7 members even, with other words, among the richest economies in the world. The key is going to be for them to put their money where their mouth is, not only issue statements, but start taking actions that are going to be painful for Israel, but may force its hand. Ultimately, though, the decision is not going to be in any of the capitals of the signatories of that statement. The decision on what happens is going to be in Washington and what the Trump administration does. And even there, we're seeing mounting frustration with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu among both members or the Trump administration itself, as well as within its the president's support base.
You mentioned that growing frustration with Mr. Netanyahu. Mr. Trump is definitely losing his patience with the Israeli leader. But will there then be any real consequences for Israel? What can Mr. Trump do?
What he can do, we know. Whether he will do it is a $64,000 question. Israel's dependent on military support from the United States. It's dependent on political and diplomatic support from the United States, which up until now, Trump has given Netanyahu. You just had a report from the Jewish Institute for National Security that concluded that the United States had to use far more anti-missile rockets in support of Israel during the 12-day Iran-Israel war than has previously been reported. So, with other words, the United States has leverage. Whether Donald Trump will use that leverage or not is the question that is unanswered. We may get an answer in the coming days. There's optimism being expressed both by the Americans and by the Israelis that a ceasefire in Gaza is around the corner. Whether that is true or not will ultimately be clear if and when the U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff decides that it's time to travel to Doha, to Qatar, to finalize the negotiations. So far, he's been putting off his trips on several occasions.
Looking at how dire the humanitarian crisis has become in Gaza, does this joint statement come too late? Is there any hope that real efforts can be made to bring enough aid into those who desperately need it? And will we only see real change if a ceasefire is put in place?
I would argue it's both too late and it's never too late. With other words, it's too late for those who've already lost their lives or whose lives have been severely damaged by the lack of humanitarian aid, food, medical care. On the other hand, it can't come too soon because that will help save lives. Ultimately, this is a question of political will. Israel is weaponizing humanitarian aid, which is a violation of international law. Uh, Access to food, to basic essentials of life, is a human right and it's inviolable. On the other hand, ultimately, this will only be resolved or improved at least once you have a ceasefire in place.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing your insights with us. We were speaking to James Dorsey, Adjunct Senior Fellow at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies at Nanyang Technological University.